As you may know, I recently bought a console that included games, and I decided that this is the perfect opportunity to discuss what you need to look at when you're purchasing games. The first thing are the cases. Now, cases aren't super important because they can be replaced, as I mentioned in my previous video. But what is important to look at is it's important to make sure that the game's in there to begin with. I didn't make sure that this game was in there. This isn't a joke. This isn't a bit. This game was not in there after I purchased it. Am I mad about it? No. I already have a copy. And I got a killer deal on the sale. $59.99 for an Xbox 360 and 30 games. So I'm not too fussed about it. The games was a plus. It wasn't a deal breaker. But really, what you're looking at the case for is to basically determine how someone would treat the disc. Now, it's not a general rule, because cases are designed to protect the discs. So, ideally, the case can be bad, but the disc is okay. So, it's not like a deal breaker, but it is a general thing to look at, like this case for Modern Warfare 2. Now, it looks good. If you pick this up from the front, it would be fine, but go to open the case, and it just swings open, and it's basically coming apart. So, open cases. Even if you can replace the case, open the case. Make sure so you can see cracks, you can see any damage, you can see potential water damage to the manual. This looks pretty good. It's got some scuffed edges. If you're in, say, a place where the game isn't in the case, you can sometimes, like in CEX, sometimes they'll leave the manual in there, sometimes they won't. It just depends. So, check the manual out if it's in there. And then when you get the games, when they go to get games, it is kind of annoying, especially if you're getting a lot at once, but ask to check the games before you leave. Because even though they do have a warranty and a return period, it's best to get it out of the way before you leave. Now, I didn't do this because it's a huge set, and I should have looked. And once you start to look at the games, you'll notice some details. So, I actually had pretty good results of the games, and I only technically have 4 that don't work. We have Destiny, because it's online only and the servers are shut down. The case isn't salvageable because it's cracked, so that kind of sucks. Another one was Forza 3. Now, I actually got this to work. I got it to work, and when I went to install the data from the disk, it detected that there was a scratch on the disk. I didn't see a scratch, but I looked at it again, and you can't really see it. You can there. Right underneath my thumb, you see a circular scratch. You see a circular scratch reflecting. That is a classic Xbox 360 circular scratch. And that Xbox 360 circular scratch essentially means that the game is dead. Now, you could theoretically play this game to a point. In fact, I actually have played this game. Not very far, but eventually I'll run into a point where I won't be able to progress due to the scratch. Resurfacing is an option here. It doesn't feel too deep, but always check for scratches on the bottom, especially circular ones. And always, if you can, it's like a little bit of a faux pas. Feel it. If you look at the discs. If a lot of the times in CEX they'll offer to clean them, or they'll just do it. Yes. Or you could ask them, hey, could you clean that up for me? Always ask them to look at the discs. So this disc, this is FIFA 11. FIFA 11, which is the very first disc that I noticed had a fault. I actually couldn't see what the problem was. I didn't know. Um, the this also has the ring of death on it, but I couldn't see it at first. But this also has another problem that I want to show you. Now, this isn't likely disc rot, but it might be a what I was told is a surface scratch. And essentially what a surface scratch is a scratch on the opposite side of the disc. If it gets scratched on this side of the disc, it can lose data way easier than it can if it gets scratched on this side of the disc. Because this side of the disc can be resurfaced because it's got layers that can be resurfaced a finite amount of times, but the likelihood that you'll run out of those times are minimal. So what we need to do is, I know roughly where it is, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. No, you can't see it. Oh, yeah, there you go. So you can barely see it right underneath the 3 and the 360. You can see through the disc. There's a little pinhole. And that indicates to me that either A, there's disc rot. I don't think that this game does have disc rot. I think it has a surface scratch. So because of this, FIFA 11 essentially won't load up at all. Now, it'll load up a little bit, but you can't play any matches. And again, that the likelihood that a resurface will fix this is pretty good, because I think it's the circular scratch. But when you get games, always shine a light through the back and look at it from the bottom. The third game that doesn't work because, well, honestly, I don't know why this third game doesn't work. As far as I could tell, it looks good. It doesn't have the circular scratch. It's got some scratches on the surface, but then I flipped it around and looked at it from the bottom. But I don't know why this doesn't work. It just doesn't load into my console for some reason. It doesn't recognize it as an Xbox 360 game. So, one of the things you should do, if you can't see anything wrong with it, is immediately stick it into your console when you get home. But one of the things you need to do, especially with 360 games, is if it has the option, is to install the game. And all of these games I bought, except for one, had the option to install them. And that's how I found out that Forza 3 had the surface scratch, had the circular scratch, because I didn't see it the first time. Will this catch every circle scratch or anything? Honestly, I don't know. Other consoles, unfortunately, you're kind of stuck with having to play them, and hope that it's all good. But check all your discs properly, and there's very few that has no visible markers of any problems that just don't work. Like this copy of Gears of War for some reason. And another game, not part of that, but another game I thought worth pointing out was Quidditch World Cup that I bought a little while ago. And looking at the back of it, it actually looks pretty good. But this game has been resurfaced. And I know it's been resurfaced because of this white dust that's around the center and the outside rings. And you can scratch that off with your thumbnail. You can scratch that off, and I know that that's been resurfaced because of that, because they sand it or they buff it depending on what resurfacing machine they have and what disc that they're doing, and they essentially sand it down a little bit, and ideally they'll coat that a little bit as well, so to get more life out of it rather than it just being bare. And just because it's been resurfaced doesn't mean that the game's not going to work all the way. Just keep it into consideration that this game was damaged. That likelihood that resurfaced fixed it is pretty good. If a Blu-ray looks like that, how like it has that dust around it, I would avoid it because resurfacing Blu-rays using by sanding it will essentially permanently damage it. You should only buff Blu-rays, and if you see GameCube games that are like that, avoid it as well because those are way easier to permanently damage using resurfacing machines. So just keep that in mind, and we're gonna use that to determine about this Riptide game. So we're gonna look at the outside first, and you might not be able to see it too well, but the outside is really dirty. Look inside the case, see what the case is like. This case is, other than dirty, actually in pretty decent condition. The manual is in relatively good condition. Doesn't look like it has any water damage. The backside of the disc has this weird red stuff. I don't know what that is. I can clean that off. Look at the bottom. There's a little red smudge there. Again, that can easily be cleaned off. There's a light scratch there that, again, you probably can't see it, but what is a more worrying scratch is this one right here. So you see that scratch there? You probably can't see it too well, but it's slightly serrated. Like it's been ground, or it was grinding against something. So the likelihood that this game, and you can also feel it. You can feel it just a little bit. So the likelihood of this game not working is higher than if that wasn't there. So I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to show you how to install Xbox 360 games in case you don't know, to make sure, to the best of my ability, without resurfacing it, that this game works. So we're going to jump into doing that. Alright, no capture card, I'm afraid. I'm going to get one soon, so we're doing this the old-fashioned way. So we're going to go to My Games, and then navigate to the game that you want to install, which is Riptide in this circumstance. Press X, then go over to install and press A, and it will start to install. Alright, and we are 100% done, which is a good sign. That means the likelihood that we're going to have any problems while playing this are minimal, especially if we keep it installed. Now, do remember that this doesn't mean that we can now go sell the disc, because the disc is still required for you to play the game. And if we were to sell the game, honestly, I would personally resurface it if I wasn't going to sell it to a place that would do that. So I hope this video helps you on how to look at video games when you're going into purchase, especially for retro games. Keep in mind that these are general guidelines, not necessarily set in stone. Some games will be more salvageable than others. It's just kind of a gamble. But always look at the discs and look at it through the light, because if you can see pinholes or you can see weird things in the disc, the likelihood that that disc isn't going to work or that's got disc rots is higher. One thing I plan on doing to demonstrate what disc rot looks like and how it can progress is I'm going to try to cause my copy of Destiny to get disc rot. I'm going to do it in a way that I think is most likely to cause it disc rot, and we'll see how that goes. So that might be a future video soon, so make sure to check that out. And for more content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Either way, I'll see you there. Bye.